Welcome back. It's still Nigeria 2015. We're looking at the business and the elections. And of course, I probably hastily signed off renowned economist Dr. Biodun Adedipe. He's still here with me because Bolson came on and is like, I've got a couple of questions or two. So, Dr. Adedipe, thank you so much for sticking around. You're here because Bolson insisted that we must take another angle to it. So, Bolson,
no, I just felt,
you owe Dr. Adedipe a cup of coffee.
I think I owe him that a cup of coffee. But again, it's all about money. And I think one of the issues, and I'm listening in to the production room, what about, we talk about investments in infrastructure and moving forward. But if we look at what goes into our Independent National Electoral Commission every year's budgetary allocations. Now we're talking about investment in infrastructure. The umpire says, look, they will need to do a few more in terms of logistics. They wouldn't like to farm that out to a third party moving forward. How much more in terms of money do you think INEC would need to make the process of electoral organizing elections a lot bit more better, a bit organized, less delays and things like that?
Well, let me just say, with a rule of the thumb, without looking at the actual numbers, I'll say anything between 25 and 30%. And I will tell you where I'm coming from, of the current budget of INEC.
So if INEC gets about 100 billion naira at the moment, you want that to be upped by 20 to 25%?
25 to 30.
Okay.
And I will tell you my reason. Now, if you look at the landmass of Nigeria and the logistics implications of that, it is quite huge, moving those sensitive materials, especially the sensitive ones. Now, there are those that can easily be moved about anytime, anyhow. But the sensitive ones relate to the conclusion of that process. So you're talking in terms of security of those materials to start with, but also ensuring they are available where they will be needed on time. And that is where the real challenge of logistics is. And it is really, really challenging. And I believe very strongly that that was why initially INEC thought of, farming that out. So that, yes, let's farm this out to those that are in that business, understanding that they do this on a day-to-day basis. And by the way, logistics handling is not a core business of INEC. That's not its core mandate. So it makes a lot of sense business-wise for them to actually outsource that. But now, seeing what has happened outsourcing and how that has raised some question mark in terms of the integrity of the process in some areas. And so I tend to see why INEC is saying, okay, maybe the next election, we're going to handle it ourselves. But even at that, I will still recommend, from experience of logistics, that it is still better for them to review the entire process first and not hastily come to decide that we do it internally. But there is no doubt that if we want the kind of results required, we need to invest more money in logistics for the election process. For
INEC, in what particular areas do you think these further investments, this 25 to 30% uptick in its budgetary allocation should come from? For example, and I'll say this very quickly, INEC has to rely on Nigeria's Air Force aircraft to take some of the electoral materials to certain locations. Do you think INEC requires to have its own branded aircraft, for example?
No, they don't have to. They don't have to.
Okay.
So, and of course, you talk about, let's take currency movement, for example. Bullion vans move currencies. Now, if we look at ballot papers as sensitive enough as our currency, maybe you want to think of them having such kind of equipment to move those papers around. So, but all of that, again, it's not so much as providing them, as I remarked earlier on. It is about ensuring they deliver the ultimate mandate, which is to ensure integrity of the materials and also timeliness in terms of availability where they are required. So that entails a whole lot. And don't forget, in all of this process, it is still human beings you are dealing with. So it is so much more to do with those individuals. And that means also at some point we must begin to see ourselves Nigerians that are involved in that process, not so much as what I'm paid for it, but that I want to ensure this succeeds because I'm a stakeholder, I'm a Nigerian. So that this idea of volunteerism will begin to be something we want to build and also grow in our people. Once we get to that point, it becomes difficult for anybody in logistics to compromise the process.
Harriet has one very crucial question
Yes,
for
one
you.
question. You said, they should be looking at increasing the budget for INEC by about 25 to 30%. And I'm thinking to myself that when the initial, allocation was proposed for the electoral umpire, there were a couple of raised eyebrows. So where are we going to get this extra 25 to 30% to still, give to the umpire to ensure that we have a seamless process?
And you've been reading my mind, because you have falling oil prices.
Exactly. We have our reserves dropping down to below $30 billion. So what are we talking about?
Now, I will put it this way, that when it comes to budgeting, it's a matter of priorities. What do you want to deliver? And that also means if you want to deliver this objective, you need to back it up with this much money. Now, when you talk about where the money will come from, again, as I remarked earlier, it is not rocket science. Now, we all know fully well as players within this system. I've done my simple arithmetic. Take just the matter of oil theft that we talk about all over the place. 400,000 barrels per day at $50 per barrel, produced over 365 days in a year. Use even the old rate of the central bank before devaluation.
Because that was 150 thereabout.
150.
You multiply that, you get 1.23 trillion.
Yes.
So throw that in to start with. I mean, you are looking at so much resources available that can help you deliver your objectives.
So one very quick question: when should this 25 to 30% uptake in INEC budgetary allocation start being given to INEC? Should the next National Assembly, who will be coming in June, start to do that now, or they should wait until 2018, the midnight of 2019 elections, before we start giving that money to INEC, and I'll be what? Excuses for not delivering?
They should begin to do that in 2016.
2016 budget. So that INEC has about 3 years head start, as it were.
So that's one other issue I see with our election process. Now, we make allocations, yes, where we don't release the money until we are close to the elections. Things need to be put in place. In fact, when you talk about logistics, like I said earlier on, it is not about this is the time I need it, and that is when you want to provide it. It's something you build up over time. And of course, this issue about card readers too, if we had them in place in good time, they would have been well tested and also would have detected where the issues were. Like the case of cellophane paper covering some, and therefore it will not work effectively. Remove the cellophane paper, and the card reader is working efficiently. Now, all of those things would have been tested over time and proven. So there's no way we get to the live elections. We'll now be trying to see whether all these issues...
It's like your ATM card. Exactly. You didn't change the PIN, and you got to the ATM machine just to take cash at the crucial hour of the night, and you say, hold on a minute, it was a weekend, and there's no way to change the PIN. You can't take cash out of it. So you need to have done that as soon as you got it. Very, very important point you raised in your earlier comments about Nigerians volunteering during the elections and not just using the members of the National Youth Service Corps. How do you think the Nigerian government moving forward would get the electorate to say, look, I believe in electoral process. I'm not just going voting. I'm just going to be available as a volunteer for INEC for the 2019 elections, for instance?
I think the whole thing starts from the leadership itself, okay? And that means if the leadership is credible. Now, this is something we always talk about in leadership. Now, when you are a leader, it means that you have not only a vision as to where you are taking the people behind you to. Secondly, it means people trust you. So once you have a place clearly defined for them that you want to take them to, and they trust you, people will follow. And that is how the thing starts. Now, also, at the top leadership, we have to prove that what is uppermost in your heart is the interest of the nation. Once people see that and believe it, they begin to follow you. And that is where the whole thing starts from. So if, as a leader in an organization, I say, ladies and gentlemen, we are not making as much money as we used to do. 2015 has been tough, so we need to cut pay. And I start with myself. It won't be too difficult for me to sell it to my colleagues that we need to cut pay. And so it's easy for them to therefore follow me as a leader. So it has to start from that top, and then people will begin to line up behind our leaders.
So it all comes back to leadership. Harriet, you're the one leading the show.
Oh, yes, definitely.
I leave the rest.
Well, thank you so much, Wilson, and thank you so much, Dr. Adedipe, for staying on and still taking some of this question and sharing your perspectives with us. Wilson, we'll take a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll look at the expectations of the market, going forward. It is a very interesting week. Okay, we really do not have so much time for the
week.
week.
Have some things to say
Yes,
about the
Dr.
market as well.
Adedipe,
Sure
yes, please just stay on with us as we quickly round up the show. So we're looking at the markets now, and then we're looking at how, players have positioned themselves. Coming from last week, we saw the markets looking very good, very green. So let me take your point of view.
If you look at foreign investors again, from the
yes.
bond point of view, from the sovereign, because that is where the key issue is.
That's right.
One area where you look at confidence coming in from foreign investors is the bond market and the treasury, which are government-owned instruments.
Yeah. Now, I was at an event last week, Thursday, many foreign investors there, and I made the remark that, ladies and gentlemen, the elections will come and they will go. Nigeria will remain as a nation. This economy will remain. What is the basic driver of economic activities in Nigeria? I said, one, we have the population, the market. Will our consumption habit and patterns change? I said, no, that's my own projection. It won't change. Now, to that extent also, you look at the population in terms of, the distribution. It is still largely children and youth. So, and of course, it means if this economy revives and begins to, grow and convert that growth into development, you begin also to grow your middle class, which internationally are known to be the consuming army. So now, if that happens, that means that this market will still remain of interest. And I saw quite a lot of them nodding. So, and of course, I said also, take it all together. Let's face it, Nigeria is still the place to be. Not only in Africa, but globally for any investor.
But Dr. Adedipe, this comment you made came shortly before, it was last week, and this morning we all wake up to the fact that Fitch has done, a revision of Nigeria's outlook from stable to negative. How will all of that now begin to affect investors' decisions, particularly for international investors? Yeah,
Fitch has its own perception, okay, and that's the way I see rating. Rating is a professional perception based on facts available to you. Now, based on those facts, you develop some sentiment that make you issue a rating. Now, for me, I have a different perspective. I see a Nigeria that still holds those opportunities and those potentials. And so there are still a lot of opportunities for foreign investors, and many of them are still looking in.
Dr. Adedipe, a very, very nice way for us to end the business in elections. Thank you so much for coming on the program and sharing your perspectives, Bosin. Always a pleasure to have you on set.
We thank you, Dr. Adedipe,
we'll take a closer look at the markets tomorrow. But of course, it's still the Nigeria 2015 studios. We'll continue to focus on the elections, on the matters that really matter to you. And don't forget, you can continue to send in your comments to any of the platforms showing on your screen. But for now, that's it on the business for the elections. I'm Harriet Agbinyi. Bye-bye.